I saw my husband's face on a scam website. He was using a different name and my account. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a deepfake, a glitch in the algorithm. But then came the voice, his voice, selling salvation to strangers in exchange for their last savings. Behind every slick pitch and glowing testimonial was a lie built with my silence, my trust, and my name on the paperwork. I was the invisible endorsement, the clean signature behind the con. And by the time I discovered the truth, we had already paid off the mortgage. Our life was bought with borrowed hope. What came next wasn't justice. It was the cost of finally opening my eyes. The fluorescent lights above Emily Carter's workstation buzzed softly, casting a cold, antiseptic glow over the sea of cubicles. The call center was thinning out, voices fading, chairs scraping across linoleum, coffee cups abandoned like empty shells after battle. But Emily remained, headset still snug against one ear, her voice a measured calm. "I'm truly sorry to hear that, ma'am. I know this is frightening, but we're going to help you take the right steps." A pause. The woman on the other end stammered through tears, her voice cracking. She had wired her entire retirement fund to what she thought was a secure investment firm, only to find out it was a phantom site, a phantom promise, and now a very real void. Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard. She'd heard versions of this story all week. She knew the scripts, the escalation process, the official empathy. But something about this one, maybe it was the way the woman kept saying, "My husband trusted me with that money," made the static in her headset feel heavier than usual. She ended the call with practiced efficiency and leaned back, rubbing the bridge of her nose. Around her, the few remaining agents were laughing at something, probably memes, probably about customer complaints. Their world was still intact. Emily's, somehow, always felt slightly off balance. She powered down her system and grabbed her coat. The office emptied into a corridor lined with glass, reflections doubling the late-night quiet. In the elevator, her face stared back at her. Pale, sharp-featured, the corners of her mouth flat from days, years, of listening to people unravel. Outside, the city hummed with mechanical life. The steel skeletons of Chicago's skyline stood motionless against the dark sky, while distant sirens braided with the winter wind. Emily passed the same locked cafe, the same flickering billboard, the same man with a cardboard sign, and always the same tension in her chest, like she was walking through her life on a narrow beam. Her phone buzzed. "Late again?" "I made dinner." Smiley face. "Alex." Her husband. His text ended with what was meant to be a smile, but even in words it felt like a mask. She smiled back, barely, and typed a quick response. "On my way." She tucked the phone away and crossed the parking lot, the white noise of tires on wet pavement echoing through the near-empty structure. The cold bit at her cheeks, and for a brief second, she thought, what if I didn't go home? Not in a dramatic way. Just kept walking. Just kept moving until she felt something break free. But the keys were already in her hand, and home was waiting. The warmth hit her before she even opened the door, the scent of roasted garlic and thyme drifting through the walls like a promise. Emily stepped into the house, letting the familiar creak of the floorboards greet her. The lights were dimmed to a honeyed glow. Jazz played softly in the background, something vintage, with scratchy vinyl warmth. Alex was at the stove, stirring a pan with one hand, glass of wine in the other. He looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that could disarm any doubt. Too easy, too perfect. Just in time, he said. I made your favorite. Chicken Provençal. And yes, I even used real saffron. Emily forced a grin as she slipped out of her coat. The kitchen was spotless, every surface gleaming. The table was already set. 2 candles, linen napkins, a bottle of wine breathing beside their plates. Everything precise, everything curated. From upstairs came the low thrum of video game chatter. Is Zach still on his laptop? She asked, already knowing the answer. Alex nodded. Arguing about crypto again. I told him to power down in 20, but I'm not holding my breath. She walked through the living room. Plush gray sofa, family photos along the mantel, the one from their trip to Cape Cod, where she genuinely smiled, and called up the stairs. Zach, dinner. A muffled, 2 minutes, floated down. They sat, ate, talked, or rather, Alex talked. About his new course, about rising subscriber numbers, about how this next launch could really break through. He was animated, confident, his voice rich with momentum. Emily listened, nodding, sipping her wine. At one point, he paused and looked directly at her. You believe in what I'm building, right? The question hung in the air longer than it should have. She met his eyes, ocean blue, clear, practiced, and something inside her tightened. Of course, she said. He leaned over and kissed her hand. We're going to be okay. I promise. Later, as they cleared the table together, Zach wandered in. Hey, Dad, that site you mentioned, the one with the free trading sim, is it legit? Alex looked at Emily, then back at Zach. Totally. Just be smart, and don't give anyone your info, okay? It's for learning, not gambling. Got it. Zach disappeared again. Emily wiped down the counter, her back turned. When they crawled into bed, Alex was already half asleep, mumbling something about tomorrow's pitch. She lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence between their breaths. The warmth of the house, the safety of the walls, all of it felt borrowed. Somewhere deep down, beneath the calm, a question had started to form. And once it started, it didn't stop. Morning sunlight flooded the co-working space in downtown Chicago, bouncing off glass walls and polished concrete floors. Everything inside looked like success. Standing desks, kombucha taps, men and women in slim-cut blazers murmuring over pitch decks. Alex Carter fit in perfectly. He sat at a table near the window, laptop open, earbuds in, voice low but precise. On screen, a webinar outline, dense with slides on agile capital theory, leverage positioning, and disruption-proof portfolios. Buzzwords, dressed as wisdom. He wasn't just selling hope. He was packaging illusion as inevitability. Behind the pseudonym Daniel Thorne, Alex had built a following. Not massive, but enough. His face, slightly altered with a trim beard, contact lenses, a different cadence in speech, appeared in ads promising financial independence in 90 days or less. The voiceover was always calm, rational, aspirational. If you're still relying on one income stream, you're already behind. He closed the tab and opened another. Dashboards showing payments from Stripe, PayPal, obscure processors with layered IP routing. Thousands flowing in weekly. He transferred a portion to his personal account, another through an LLC shell, and one discrete stream to Emily's checking account. The account she'd given him a year ago just in case. No questions asked. Smart move, said a voice behind him. Alex looked up. Kevin Lindem stood there, all charm and calculation in a tailored gray suit. His eyes were pale, nearly colorless, and they didn't blink enough. I thought you were in Austin, Alex said. Flew in for investors. And to make sure you weren't getting sloppy. Kevin pulled out a chair and sat. He gestured at the screen. 3 new refund disputes. Fix them. Alex sighed. Those are low tier. Under $200. Doesn't matter. This isn't about dollars. It's about cracks in the surface. Keep the facade perfect, or we lose the illusion. And without illusion, you're just another loud voice on the internet. Alex stared at him. Kevin leaned in. You're good at this, Alex. Really good. But don't start believing your own pitch. Then, softer. And don't forget, your wife's account is still a liability if she catches on. Alex flinched. Just a second. Kevin caught it and smiled thinly. They left separately. Alex walked down Michigan Avenue alone, collar pulled against the wind, face carefully neutral. On his phone, another sale notification pinged. New enrollment, $499. Launch your portfolio like a pro. He didn't smile. Not anymore. It was all just motion now, the machine running, the gears grinding. Somewhere, people were believing him. Somewhere, someone was wiring their last $1,000 because they wanted to believe. He pocketed his phone and didn't look back. The office was unusually quiet for a Tuesday. The hum of keyboards and the soft pings of chat alerts sounded distant, insulated by the thick fog settling inside Emily Carter's thoughts. She stared at the screen in front of her, not blank, but unreadable. 3 separate fraud reports had come in that morning, all with the same pattern. Wire transfers to an educational platform promising high-yield investment returns, slick marketing, no real customer service. Emily knew these cases. She handled them daily. But this time, something stung. The account numbers. A small string of digits caught her attention, a fragment of a receiving account buried in the dispute report. She blinked, ran a quick internal trace, opened her own records just to compare. Cold sweat broke out across her scalp. The partial number matched her own checking account. No, that wasn't possible. Maybe it was a random coincidence. Maybe someone used her routing number by mistake. Maybe. Her breath caught. 2 more reports. 2 more with that same pattern. She checked the metadata, layered through the bank's back-end security shell. It wasn't just similar. It was her account. The one she'd barely touched since she gave it to Alex for overflow transfers. The one he said was safer to use for non-taxable stuff. Heart racing now, she pulled up a 4th report, not yet assigned. An older man, 73, retired firefighter. His note read like a confession. I thought it was real. He said he'd walked away from Wall Street to teach people like me. His name was Daniel Thorne. I just wanted to leave something to my grandkids. Emily's fingers froze over the keyboard. Daniel Thorne. She had never heard the name out loud before, but something about it echoed with unnatural familiarity, like a voice heard in a dream, distorted but personal. She clicked the audio transcript attached to the file. The man's voice trembled. I just want to know if I'm going to get my money back. He seemed real, you know. He said his wife worked in banking. Said she kept him grounded. The room around her seemed to vanish. Her chair creaked as she leaned forward, sweat dampening the collar of her blouse. There it was, not a smoking gun, but the scent of smoke in the walls. Emily muted the clip, closed the tabs, sat perfectly still for 10 seconds, then stood. She walked to the break room like nothing had happened, made tea with shaking hands, smiled at a passing coworker. But inside, her world had tilted, just slightly, just enough to never sit straight again. The house was quiet, too quiet. Emily stepped inside with deliberate calm, setting her bag down as though nothing in her life had changed in the last 6 hours. The kitchen light was on, casting a warm pool across the hardwood floor. Alex was seated at the table, laptop open, earbuds in. He looked up and smiled. "Big day tomorrow," he said, closing the lid. "We're pushing out a new course bundle. Got a promo running on 3 channels. Should hit 6 figures by Friday." She nodded slowly, eyes scanning the room. Everything was in place. Zach's sneakers by the door, the fruit bowl on the counter, the lingering aroma of takeout. "Sounds exciting," she murmured. That night, when the house went dark and Zach was asleep, Emily waited. She lay beside Alex in silence, counting the rise and fall of his breath. When it steadied, deepened, she slipped out of bed. Downstairs, the light from his office monitor bathed the room in cold blue. The password was easy. Their wedding date. He never thought she'd look. The desktop was cluttered with folders named like any entrepreneur's system: Q3 strategy, affiliate flow, client funnel. But inside, everything rotted. She opened a video file. There he was, her husband, dressed differently, facial hair heavier, speaking in a voice that wasn't quite his, lower, more calculated. On the screen, he introduced himself. "Hi, I'm Daniel Thorne. I walked away from a high-level Wall Street position to help ordinary people take back their financial freedom." Emily's hand covered her mouth. The background was generic: gray wall, 2 fake certificates, a plant that looked almost real. But the man, his cadence, his gestures, even the forced pauses, was unmistakable. Another video, then another. Testimonials from alleged clients, all obviously scripted. A database of names, contacts, payment confirmations. A spreadsheet mapping revenue channels. Under trusted routes, 1 entry. E. Carter, verified account. She sat back, staring at the glow of the monitor. Her own name, not just adjacent to the crime, but stitched into it. He had used her. Her integrity, her profession, her silence. The room spun. She stood and backed away from the desk, knocking over a chair in the process. The sound echoed too loudly. She froze. No footsteps upstairs. No reaction. She sank to the floor, knees folding under her, the edge of the desk pressing into her spine. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts. She wanted to scream. She wanted to believe this was still salvageable. But there he was, in pixels and lies. And she could no longer unknow what she had just seen. The morning light felt foreign, like it belonged to a world she'd been evicted from. Emily sat at the kitchen island, both hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. Across from her, Alex moved about the kitchen like any ordinary husband, humming faintly, slicing avocado, flipping eggs in a pan. The radio played low, a voice calmly discussing market fluctuations and the rise in online fraud awareness. He didn't flinch. "Got a meeting with some podcast people later," he said over his shoulder. "Thinking of launching an audio series. It's crazy how fast it's all scaling up." Emily blinked slowly. In her mind, last night hadn't ended. The videos, the spreadsheets, his voice under another name, they still pulsed behind her eyes. And now, here he was, acting like nothing had shifted. Maybe for him, it hadn't. She managed a sound, not quite a word, just agreement shaped. Alex turned, placed a plate in front of her. "You okay? You look tired." Tired. That word felt laughable. But she nodded. "I had a weird dream," she said softly, "that I was inside someone else's life, and I couldn't get out." He chuckled. "Sounds like you need that vacation." She looked down at the eggs. The food sat in perfect symmetry on the plate, like everything in their life. Curated, appealing, hiding rot. Then came the notification. The radio voice changed. Authorities continue to investigate the identity of an online figure known as Daniel Thorne, who allegedly scammed over $2 million from private investors using fraudulent educational platforms. Her hand tightened around the mug. Alex reached for the dial and switched to music. They'll make a villain out of anyone these days. He said it casually. No edge. No panic. Emily looked at him. Really looked. At the confidence that once made her fall in love. The calm that used to soothe her after hard days. And now, she realized, all of it had a second face. Not hidden, just carefully turned away from her view. Later that day, alone in her car outside the bank, she stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. This wasn't about legality anymore. Not just. This was about loyalty. About the cost of silence. The cost of pretending. The mortgage was paid. Zach's school tuition was covered. Their family trip booked. All of it, underpinned by fraud. She whispered aloud. How do you destroy the life you built to save the person you were? There was no answer. Only the sound of her own breath. And the creeping realization that silence had its own price. The building rose like a monolith of ambition, all steel, glass, and mirrored arrogance. Emily stepped through the revolving door into an atrium of silence and shine. No music, no clutter, just precision. Even the receptionist smiled with the efficiency of a well-coded bot. She had booked the meeting under a false pretense. A potential affiliate curious about launching an influencer investment brand. The request had gone through fast. Too fast. Kevin Lindem, she'd learned, didn't miss opportunities. Even fake ones. The elevator climbed without a sound. As it opened, a chill met her. Not from air conditioning, but from the aesthetic. White walls, black trim, matte glass, a long corridor that seemed to narrow the closer you walked. Kevin waited in a sleek conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He stood when she entered, extending a hand that felt colder than the steel framing behind him. "Ms. Jenkins," he said, using the name she'd put on the form. "Glad you reached out." He motioned for her to sit. On the table, a tablet, a pitch deck, and a glass of water. No clutter, no warmth. "I've seen your channels," he began. "Your demo is right on the edge. Underfunded but aspirational. You'll convert well. What exactly are you looking to build?" Emily hesitated a beat. "Something real, but scalable." He smiled faintly. "Real is optional. Scalable isn't." He launched into a presentation. Slides flicked past. Fabricated growth charts. Psychological manipulation techniques masked as marketing funnels. Snippets of empathy-driven ad scripts. But the tone, the way he spoke about clients, about people, was venom wrapped in silk. These aren't just customers. They're seekers. They want to believe. That's your lever. She studied him. No sign of doubt, no flicker of conscience. He spoke like someone explaining gravity, as if exploitation was just a force of nature. Then he said it. "We've got a partner, Daniel Thorne. Maybe you've seen his numbers. Clean aesthetic, mid-40s trust factor, ex-finance narrative. The guy's printing conversions." Emily swallowed. Her pulse thudded against her collarbone. "Do you work closely?" she asked. "Not directly. Keeps it compartmentalized. Smart. But we share some infrastructure. Keeps the pipeline tight." He glanced at her, studied her for just a second too long. "You seem tense," he said. "You sure you're not a regulator?" She forced a chuckle. "Do I look like one?" Kevin smiled. No. You look like someone who knows what she wants and knows what people are willing to believe. She left 15 minutes later. Outside, the sky had dimmed. Wind tugged at her coat. The city no longer looked like home. It looked like a chessboard. And Kevin? He wasn't just part of the machine. He was the design. It was after midnight when Emily descended into the basement. The house above her slept. Zach in his room. Alex curled up in the master bedroom. Dreams she could no longer access flickering behind his eyelids. The basement had always been his domain. A space for projects, for grind sessions. She rarely came down. The first thing she noticed was the order. Rows of plastic storage boxes, labeled in Alex's neat handwriting. Taxes. Brand assets. W-9s. Normal things, at first glance. She opened a box. Inside, old laptops, external drives, handwritten notes with login credentials, diagrams of email funnels. Nothing illegal in isolation, but together, they told a story. A story he had written behind her back. On one hard drive, she found folders labeled with initials she didn't recognize, then a shortcut, routing logs, EC. Her initials. Her account. Click. An Excel file bloomed open. A list of transactions. Amounts. Sources. And her account number. Used consistently to receive and redistribute consulting payments. Some were in the thousands. Some just under reporting thresholds. Every one tied back to promotional materials she recognized from Kevin's office. She opened a second file, voice notes. Note to self, EC's account cleared. Shift next batch via Stripe proxy. Avoid batching more than 5 at a time. Risk flags. She never checks it. Another. This account's gold. Clean banking history, zero attention. God, I married right. Emily recoiled as if struck. Her hands trembled. Not from shock anymore. From rage. From betrayal so intimate it burned. This wasn't just deception. It was weaponized closeness. He hadn't just hidden things from her. He had used her as a tool, a firewall. In another folder, she found customer service recordings, hundreds. People begging for refunds. Others panicking after realizing they'd signed up for Vapor. And over it all, the canned voice of Daniel Thorne. They called him mentor, savior, thief. She slammed the laptop shut. Her vision swam. It was as if the room had lost oxygen. But she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stood, steadied herself against a shelf, and slowly packed the drive and documents into a plain backpack. Then she turned off the light and climbed the stairs, each one heavier than the last. In the hallway, she paused before their bedroom door. She looked at the shape of him in the dark, peaceful, unaware, arms splayed across their shared bed. The very image of someone with nothing to hide. She walked past the room without entering. Because now, she knew everything. And she wasn't just married to a stranger. She'd been living in his shadow. And he, all along, had been living inside her trust. The dinner table looked picture perfect. 3 plates. Fresh bread. A salad in a ceramic bowl. Even a flickering candle. Alex's touch. A why not flourish meant to inject normalcy. Or theater. Emily couldn't tell anymore. Zach munched quietly, eyes fixed on his phone screen. Emily pushed her food around with her fork. Across the table, Alex recounted a client call, laughing lightly at someone's ridiculous misunderstanding of crypto basics. Emily smiled on cue, nodded when appropriate, but inside, every syllable he spoke scraped against the raw nerve of what she now knew. It wasn't just the words. It was the ease. The way he could inhabit this mask so completely. Father, mentor, partner. while operating another life beneath it. She watched him pour water into Zach's glass, pat his shoulder, speak with that soft cadence that used to make her feel safe. Not anymore. Later that evening, Zach sprawled on the couch, gaming headset over his ears. His voice rose and fell in bursts, tactical, excited, playful. Emily sat beside him. "Hey," she said gently. "Can I ask you something?" He paused his game. "Sure. You know that investing app your dad mentioned? The one with the free simulator. Did he ask you to do anything with it? Like share links? Invite friends?" Zach furrowed his brow. "No, not really. He just said it's smart to learn early. That if I started now, I'd be free before 30. Emily's chest tightened. "He ever say anything about using my account for anything? Or ask you to log into anything for him?" No, he looked confused now. "Why? Is something wrong?" She shook her head. No. Just curious. The bank's doing some audits. Thought maybe he needed help with some stuff." Zach shrugged. "He's been saying banks are dinosaurs, anyway. That they don't want people to win." She went cold. "He said that?" Zach nodded, already turning back to his game. "Yeah. He says people who play safe end up poor. That if you want real change, you gotta step outside the system." Emily watched her son re-immerse himself in the glowing chaos of his game. She sat there, motionless, the house humming gently around her. It used to be hers, this house, this family, this sense of direction. Now it felt occupied, not by strangers, but by versions of people she no longer fully recognized. Even the walls seemed different, like they were listening. She stood, walked past the mirror in the hallway, and for a moment, paused. Looked at herself. Same clothes, same face, but everything else, alien. The enemy wasn't just inside her home. The enemy had shaped it. The wind off Lake Michigan cut through Emily's coat like broken glass. She sat alone on a weathered bench near the marina, her fingers wrapped tightly around a paper cup of lukewarm tea. The sky above was bruised with early evening, violet streaks between buildings, clouds like old smoke. Across from her sat Julia Kramer, bank legal counsel, and someone Emily barely knew beyond a few terse emails. But now, under the anonymity of open air and distance from fluorescent walls, Julia felt like her last neutral ground. "So let me be clear," Julia said. "You are not officially under investigation. Not yet. But if you wait too long, you could move from unknowing facilitator to willful accomplice. And that's a line you can't cross back over." Emily nodded, jaw clenched. "I need to know." Julia pressed, her voice lower, steadier. "Is your account connected to anything now?" "Yes," Emily said, voice dry. "I traced 2 active payment routes still funneling through it. I haven't shut them off. Yet." Julia's eyebrows rose. "Why?" Because she was still hoping this would go away. Because part of her, the part that once believed in Alex's fire, in his charm, in his good, still clung to the version of him who cooked her favorite meals and stayed up all night with Zach during fevers. Because walking away meant burning the bridge they had built. "I wanted to be sure," Emily said finally. "Well, now you are." Julia leaned forward. "If you voluntarily come forward, we can negotiate. Witness cooperation. Reduced liability. But that window is closing fast." Behind Julia, the lake thrashed against the concrete embankment. Gulls wheeled in silence overhead. The city loomed, but from here, it looked like theater scenery. Too clean, too distant, too artificial. Emily stared into the water, her reflection a ghost among the ripples. Not long ago, she'd walked this very shoreline with Alex, hand in hand. He'd joked about buying a boat, naming it something absurd. They'd dreamed here. Or she had. She stood slowly. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. "I need to talk to my son first." Julia nodded, understanding in her eyes, but urgency too. "Emily, don't wait too long." As Emily walked away, the wind rose again. She hugged her coat tighter, her steps slower than necessary. She passed a couple holding hands, a jogger with headphones, a child chasing pigeons. She envied them, their unknowing. At the crosswalk, she paused. The light blinked red. She didn't move, because once she crossed, once she acted, nothing would ever be the same. She was on the edge now, not just of the sidewalk, but of everything. The house smelled like lemon and roasted garlic, deceptively calm. Emily stepped inside, her footsteps silent on the wood. Alex was at the dining table, laptop open, a notepad scrawled with bullet points and arrows. A bottle of red wine sat uncorked nearby. He looked up, bright-eyed. "Hey, just finishing up some prep. Tomorrow's launch is going to be insane. You should see the pre-orders. It's working, Em. All of it." She dropped her keys into the bowl near the door. "We need to talk." His smile faltered. "Not much, but enough." "Okay," he said, leaning back. "Everything all right?" Emily moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out the chair across from him. She sat, elbows on the table, hands clasped tightly in front of her. "There've been reports at the bank. Fraud cases. Clients losing everything." Her voice was calm, practiced. "Some of them traced to accounts connected to me. My account." Alex's eyes narrowed slightly. "Babe, I told you. We used that account for some affiliate flows. Low risk. Below the reporting threshold. You said it was okay." "I said it was okay when I thought it was clean," she replied. "Not when it was part of something you built under a fake name." He froze. Then, a chuckle. Soft. Almost pitying. "You don't understand what I'm doing." "No," she said. "I think I finally do." He stood and began pacing. "These people, they're desperate. They want someone to believe in. I give them a framework. Discipline. Tools. You give them fiction. You steal from them, Alex." "I don't steal," he snapped, then softened. "I redirect. I offer them a chance. No one complains when they win. And the ones who lose? They were never going to make it anyway." Emily stared at him. The way his voice split between ego and justification. How quickly the mask melted into something colder. "You've crossed a line," she said. "You knew what this was," he said, leaning closer. "You may not have read every line item, but you knew. You didn't want to ask. You didn't want to know." Silence. And he was right, in part. Her silence had been complicity. Her comfort, paid for with someone else's ruin. "I didn't want to believe," she admitted. Alex stepped back, arms crossed. "Look, if this is about Zach, about the future, we're winning, Em. You think the banks care about the little guys? You think your job's noble. I think my name's on a system that destroys people," she said quietly. "And I can't unsee that now." A beat. He stared at her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something like fear. Then he said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. The room was silent but charged, like air before lightning. Emily sat at the small desk in the corner of their bedroom, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. A blank document stared back at her, cursor blinking in rhythm with her pulse. She titled the file, "Not for Anyone," then began to type. "I loved you before I knew what you were capable of. I believed you were building something. Something brave, something hard-earned. I told myself the shortcuts were temporary. That success would come clean eventually." Her fingers moved faster. "But now I see the truth. Not just yours, mine. The nights I didn't ask. The transfers I let happen. The luxury I wrapped myself in and called love. I justified every step because I wanted our life to feel earned. But I see now it was borrowed. From strangers we'll never meet. People we crushed with charm and rhetoric and mentorship packages. She paused, the lump in her throat rising. Not tears. Something heavier. Shame. And clarity. I've become an echo of your silence. And worse, a shield. Your crimes are built on my credibility. You hid inside my name. My job. My integrity. And I let you. She scrolled back, reread the lines. Not one felt exaggerated. If anything, they felt lighter than the truth. A gust of wind rattled the window. In the hallway, she heard Zach cough in his sleep. That sound grounded her, brought the fury back into focus. This wasn't about revenge or morality in the abstract. This was about breaking a cycle before it swallowed their son whole. She typed again. I don't know who you became, but I know who I am now. She hit save, titled the document again, Confession 1 EC, copied it to a flash drive, then ejected it, held it in her palm for a moment. It felt absurdly light. She slid open the top drawer of the desk, wrapped the drive in a sock, and tucked it beneath old tax papers. Safe. For now. She didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Alex, who, as always, fell into easy unconsciousness. His breathing was even, hands open, trusting. In the dark, she whispered, I see you. Not to wake him, just to say it aloud. The auditorium buzzed with low conversation, clinking lanyards, and the artificial certainty of corporate optimism. 1,000 seats, 2 jumbo screens, and a stage dressed in LED backlighting. This was the future of Finance Summit, and Daniel Thorne was about to speak. Emily stood near the back, wearing the conference badge she'd forged the night before. Her name wasn't on any list, but her purpose was clear. In her bag, printed statements, screenshots, routing data, names of victims, and the flash drive, the one that burned like a weightless confession. Alex appeared on stage in a tailored navy suit. Not Alex, Daniel. The crowd erupted. Cameras lifted. Someone near Emily whispered, that guy changed my life last year. Took me from broke to broker in 6 months. She said nothing. Daniel spoke with practiced warmth. When I started this journey, I wasn't trying to build a movement. I just wanted people to stop being afraid of money. Fear is the oldest form of debt. Laughter. Applause. He moved across the stage like it was home. Confident, precise, sculpted by hundreds of hours in front of a webcam. Behind him, the screens showed stats, success stories, dollar signs flying into graphs. Emily's heartbeat thudded in her ears. He was mid-sentence, something about economic sovereignty in the age of disinformation, when she moved down the side aisle, quiet but steady. Security eyed her, but the badge got her close. She stepped up onto the corner of the stage. A second of delay, then the first murmurs. Then Alex turned. He froze. Emily raised the microphone from the moderator's table. Her voice was clear, steady, broadcast through the room. I'm Emily Carter. I'm a bank compliance officer. And the man on this stage is my husband. A collective intake of breath. This man is not a former Wall Street analyst. He never held a Series 7 license. He is not Daniel Thorne. His name is Alex Carter, and he has defrauded hundreds of people under a fabricated identity using falsified credentials and offshore payment routes, some of which ran through my account. Gasps. Phones lifted. Live streams clicked on. Alex stepped forward. She raised a hand. Don't. I have documentation. I have audio. I have people who trusted you, who trusted us, and lost everything. Silence. Heavy. Full. She turned to the audience. You deserve the truth. All of you. The lights above them flickered slightly. Someone in the front row stood. Then another. The curtain behind the stage, carefully drawn for effect, now looked like it might catch fire under the weight of what had just ignited. And Daniel Thorne? He was burning. The steel doors of the Chicago Metro Police Department clanged shut behind Alex Carter. No more stage. No more spotlight. Just a hard bench, for gray walls, and the sudden gravity of silence. He stared ahead, jaw tight, as officers processed paperwork, logged devices, tagged the items from his briefcase like evidence from a crime scene. Because that's what it was now. A crime. Outside, a swarm of reporters had already gathered. Cameras clicking, microphones stretching, voices cutting through cold wind. Emily stood alone across the street, arms crossed. Her coat whipped around her legs, but she barely felt it. She was staring not at the building, but through it, to everything that had led to this. The moments of doubt she buried, the questions she never asked, the meals bought with lies. Inside, Alex sat in an interrogation room, hands cuffed, expression unreadable. A detective pushed a folder across the table, one of many. The printout inside showed screenshots, financial reports, victim testimonies. All of it carefully prepared by Emily. You've been building this for a while, the detective said. But your wife? She just tore it down in one afternoon. Alex didn't respond. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't argue. His world, the carefully curated fiction of Daniel Thorne, had collapsed under its own weight. The story spread fast. Clips from the conference hit social media before the live stream even ended. Wife exposes husband as fraud on stage, trended within the hour. Financial blogs picked it up. Then morning shows. Then national news. Some videos blurred Emily's face. Others didn't. She watched them all from a windowless room in the bank's internal affairs office, next to Julia Kramer and two senior compliance officers. You did the right thing, Julia said quietly. Emily nodded, but her body didn't agree. Her hands trembled. Her jaw ached from being clenched too long. She'd exposed a criminal, but she had also exposed herself to judgment, scrutiny, betrayal. She signed the last of the affidavits, then stood. Through the window of an adjacent room, she saw him. Alex, behind glass, sitting still. He didn't look at her, but she knew he could feel her gaze. They were still tethered in some quiet, rotting way. She turned and walked out. The hallway echoed under her steps. Cameras flashed again as she emerged, questions hurled like stones. Did you know? Are you pressing charges? Was this planned? She didn't stop. Only when she reached the car, hands on the wheel, did she allow herself a breath. Because it was over. Not the fallout. Not the media storm. Not the personal ruin. But the fiction that had finally collapsed. The morning sun slanted low over the high school football field, casting long shadows across the worn artificial turf. Emily sat alone on the bleachers, hands wrapped around a thermos of tea. The air was crisp, the kind that hinted at spring but still carried the sharp breath of winter. Zach sprinted downfield in a navy jersey, his number barely readable through the sweat and motion. His hair bounced with each stride. His focus absolute. Emily watched every second. It wasn't the game that mattered. It was the motion, the effort, the normalcy of a boy running for something that didn't cost anyone else their savings. Another parent cheered. The whistle blew. Play reset. Life, in microform, moved on. A woman sat a few rows behind Emily. He's fast, she said. Emily smiled faintly. Takes after his dad. She regretted it instantly. Not the truth, just the habit of it. That reflex to keep up the narrative. After the game, Zach jogged over, breathing hard, flushed. "Did you see that third down tackle?" he asked, still amped. "I did," Emily said. "You were locked in." He grinned. "Coach says I've got instincts." They walked to the car in silence, his bag slung over one shoulder, cleats dangling. As they reached the curb, he hesitated. "Hey, Mom. I know everything's messed up right now." She paused. "It is." He looked at her, not as a child, but as someone trying to understand the world faster than he should have to. "But I know you didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I mean, you told the truth. That matters, right?" She felt her throat tighten. "Yes," she whispered. "It matters more than anything." He nodded, satisfied, and climbed into the car. They drove in companionable silence. No news stations. No social media. Just music, something soft and unintrusive, the kind of background sound that lets a soul breathe. Back home, Emily changed into a sweatshirt and pulled a blanket over her legs. She sat on the back deck, looking out at a yard that felt older than it should. In her lap, a notebook. The pages were still blank. Not forever. She uncapped a pen and began to write. Not emails. Not confessions. Just sentences. Observations. Memories. Maybe a story. Maybe a beginning. Inside, Zach's laughter drifted down the hallway. A video, probably. Something stupid. Something ordinary. And outside, beneath the open sky, Emily let herself feel the weight of nothing for the first time in weeks. Not grief. Not rage. Just breath. The email came at 3:12 a.m. Emily read it in the dark, phone light glowing cold across her face. The subject line was simple, statement from the legal counsel of Alexander Carter. Her breath caught before she even opened it. Inside, 2 paragraphs of polished venom, carefully worded denial, accusations of malicious mischaracterization by a distressed family member, language meant to cast doubt without committing to the lie. But beneath it all, a threat. They were coming for her. By mid-morning, the media spin had begun. A blog post surfaced claiming Emily had been involved from the start, the true architect of the operation. A screenshot circulated showing a blurred account statement in her name, stripped of context. Anonymous sources hinted she only turned on Alex when the money slowed down. On a podcast called Real Game, a guest sneered, "She worked at a bank, come on. You really think she didn't know?" The comment section echoed with keyboard certainty. "She's playing victim. Classic cover-up. She's as dirty as he is." Emily sat in the break room of the bank's compliance division, hands curled in her lap. Julia placed a folder in front of her, printouts of the online storm. "We can push back," Julia said. "But it's going to get ugly. You're the story now." Emily looked down at the pages. Her own face, frozen in a mid-sentence screenshot from the conference stage, now plastered across memes. Beneath one, the caption, "Lying wife or silent partner." She stood abruptly. "I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to," Julia said calmly. "But I'm telling you, Alex is using every resource left. This isn't about saving himself. It's about taking you with him." Emily walked the perimeter of the room, breath shallow. "Can we prove I didn't know?" Julia gave her a long look. "We already did. But public court and legal court don't play by the same rules." That night, Emily opened her laptop and watched a live stream she didn't want to see. Alex, speaking from jail, calling into an online interview under the banner, "Truth Behind the Setup." His voice was calm, framed in victimhood. She was under pressure, he said, working in a system that devours people. I don't blame her. But the truth is more complicated than she made it sound. The comments scrolled fast. Of course. She's flipping the narrative. Poor guy. I knew she looked fake on stage. Emily shut the lid. The worst part wasn't the lies. It was how easy they stuck. How familiar they sounded. Like a story people wanted to believe. Because nothing frightens people more than a woman telling the truth. The office was small, neutral, softly lit. The kind of space designed to not feel like anything. Emily sat on a beige couch across from Dr. Miriam Blanchard, a woman whose presence was all contained grace and disarming quiet. No clipboard, no performance, just waiting. Emily's hands were still. That felt unnatural. I'm not sure why I'm here, she said finally. You came anyway, Dr. Blanchard replied. A long pause. I think I want to understand how I let it happen, Emily said. How I lived next to it. With it. Slept beside it. Dr. Blanchard nodded, then leaned slightly forward. Have you asked yourself what you believed you were protecting? Emily looked down. I thought I was protecting our life. Our son. But maybe I was protecting the version of me that wanted to believe. Belief is not complicity, the therapist said gently. Emily laughed once. No, but silence is. Across from her, a mirror hung above the fireplace, unremarkable, frameless. Emily looked at her reflection, not with vanity, with distance, like seeing someone she hadn't spoken to in years. I used to think I was observant, she said, good at reading people, but I didn't even read my own home. Maybe you did, Dr. Blanchard said, but you translated it through love, through need. Emily's throat tightened. He used my account, my trust, my work, and I never asked the question that mattered. What was it? Emily swallowed. Would I still love him if I knew the truth? Neither of them spoke for a moment. Outside, the wind tapped against the window pane. A child laughed somewhere down the hall, a faint, bright sound in all this gray. Dr. Blanchard waited. Emily stared at the mirror again. I think I wouldn't have, and that's why I didn't ask. There was no judgment in the room, only stillness, only space for the truth to settle. Finally, Dr. Blanchard said, what do you feel toward that version of yourself now? Emily hesitated. Shame, she said. Then, quietly, but also admiration. Dr. Blanchard tilted her head slightly. Why admiration? Because she survived. She made it out. She stopped it. The silence that followed felt less like absence and more like arrival. When the session ended, Emily stepped out into the late afternoon light. Her coat open, her face bare. She didn't rush. On the sidewalk, she passed a storefront window. Her reflection glanced back. Still tired. Still thinner than before. But standing. This time, she looked into her own eyes. And didn't look away. The dining room table was covered in envelopes. White, cream, yellowed at the edges, some handwritten, others typed. Emily sat in the middle of them, surrounded like by paper ghosts. The first one had come 3 weeks ago. Now, there were dozens. Victims, survivors, strangers. Some sent thank yous. Some sent rage. I lost $4,000 because I believed him. You saved me from putting in more. Thank you for speaking out. Why didn't you say something sooner? You were there. Every line hit differently. Some like applause. Others like accusation. All of them honest. She read every word. By the third hour, Emily pulled her laptop close and opened a new document. She began typing, not an apology, not a memoir. A guide. A map for those who didn't see it coming. The title, Clean Ledger, Reclaiming Trust After Digital Fraud. She didn't overthink it. No branding. No lawyer speak. Just a clean, sharp explanation. How to spot red flags. How to trace payments. How to stop blaming yourself. A few pages in, she paused, looked at the stack of letters again, then opened a browser window and typed support@cleanledger.org. She hit enter, registered the domain, then clicked record. Her face appeared in the webcam window. No filters, no script. Just her, in soft daylight. "I'm Emily Carter," she said. "Some of you know me from a story that broke a few months ago. Some of you know me from letters I haven't answered yet. A breath. My husband built a fraud operation. I didn't see it. And when I did, I helped end it. But I also enabled it. With my silence, with my name, with my fear." She held up a letter. "This is from a woman in Ohio. She blamed herself for being too trusting. But the truth is, the systems that hurt her were designed that way. Polished, rehearsed, intimate." Pause. "I'm building a place for people like her. And like me. A place where truth isn't just a scar. It's a starting point." She ended the recording. Uploaded it. By evening, the site had its first 10 messages. By morning, 30. Some asked for help. Others offered it. One message read, "I thought I was the only one. Until I saw your video." Emily smiled. Not because it felt good, but because it felt justified. She closed the laptop, pushed the stack of letters gently aside, and sat back. Outside, the wind picked up. The world remained imperfect. Dangerous. But her voice, for the first time, had a direction. And that was a kind of justice, too. The courthouse stood like a monument to unresolved things. Cold stone steps, brass doors, security checkpoints that buzzed with restrained tension. Emily walked through them in silence, her heels clicking against the polished floor like a metronome of dread. Inside courtroom 7B, reporters sat in the back rows, heads down, phones ready. No flash photography, but their presence was palpable, eyes hungry for another quote, another image. Alex sat at the defendant's table, jaw clean-shaven, suit tailored, expression calm. Not repentant, not angry, controlled. Emily hadn't seen him in person since the arrest. Now, under fluorescent lights and surrounded by law, he looked less like a monster and more like a man too used to convincing people he wasn't one. The judge read out charges: wire fraud, conspiracy to defraud, laundering through personal accounts. Alex didn't flinch. The prosecutor laid out the case, methodical, technical, devastating. He spoke of dozens of victims, over $2 million lost, offshore diversions, social engineering. Then Emily was called. She stepped into the witness box, swore her oath, and looked into the sea of faces. For a second, her vision blurred. From nerves or light or memory, she couldn't tell. The prosecutor asked, "When did you first realize your husband was operating under a false identity?" She answered clearly, "The night I found videos on his hard drive. 3 weeks before the conference." "Did he use your financial credentials knowingly?" "Yes." "Did you permit that use?" "No, not in the way he used them." Alex didn't look at her. Not once. The defense tried to twist it. "She's just covering for her own involvement," the attorney said. A scapegoat play. The judge silenced it quickly, but Emily felt the words stick to her skin anyway. They always did. In closing arguments, Alex spoke briefly. Not as Daniel Thorne, not as a salesman, but as himself. "I lost perspective," he said. "But I started this to help people. The system is rigged. I gave them a chance to win." He paused. "I never meant to hurt her." Emily met his eyes for the first time. "You did," she said. Not loudly. Not for the court. Just for him. The judge delivered the sentence. A multi-year term. No parole in the first half. Full restitution were traceable. Alex showed no reaction. The courtroom exhaled. Outside, microphones found her. Flashbulbs followed. She held up a hand, but didn't walk away. I told the truth, she said. And I'd do it again. She didn't wait for follow-ups. Her son stood nearby, hand in his backpack strap, watching. He didn't ask anything. He just walked beside her. And for the first time in a long time, she felt the ground under her feet again. The lake was still. Morning mist rolled off the surface like breath. Emily sat on the back porch of a modest house tucked in a quiet neighborhood an hour outside the city. The wooden boards creaked beneath her rocking chair. In her hands, a chipped ceramic mug, full of black tea gone slightly cold. Peace didn't arrive like a sunrise. It arrived like this, quietly, with no fanfare. Inside, Zach clattered around the kitchen, humming off-key. He'd slept better since the trial. She had too. Not always, but enough. The house was smaller, simpler, bought not with secrets, but with savings. Scrubbed clean, not just in paperwork, in energy. No rooms held memories they couldn't touch. On the table beside her, a stack of printed pages fluttered in the breeze. The first draft of something new. A story. It began. Sometimes, the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves to keep love alive. But truth, even when it breaks, leaves room for what's real to grow. She hadn't planned to write it. But when the letters kept coming, when her inbox filled not with outrage but recognition, it became clear. People needed something more than the end of a crime. They needed a beginning. Zach stepped outside, holding a bowl of cereal. Want some? She smiled. I'm good. He sat beside her, chewing noisily. Then, did you really name the website Clean Ledger? I did. He made a face. Kinda nerdy. It's honest, she said. And it's ours. He nodded. Didn't push it. They sat together, side by side, watching the mist dissolve. Ducks moved lazily across the water. The world didn't care what they'd been through. And that was a kind of mercy. Emily stood, stretched, gathered the pages. Today she'd send the manuscript to the editor who'd reached out. Tomorrow she'd meet with 2 survivors who were now building their own network. Life moved forward, not dramatically, but deliberately. At the edge of the lawn, Zach called back over his shoulder. You think he'll ever apologize? Emily paused. Maybe, she said, but I'm not waiting for it. She turned, walked inside, and left the door open behind her. The air flowed freely through the house. Light, cool, unscripted. Because now, finally, she was living a life that didn't need to be rewritten. Some truths don't arrive with thunder. They come in silence, in bank records, in forgotten emails, in the quiet collapse of trust. Emily learned that love can be real and still dangerous. That good intentions are powerless against willful deception. And that silence, no matter how lovingly wrapped, can do as much harm as any lie. But she also learned that truth has weight. It breaks, yes, but it also rebuilds. It clears the ground for something that might grow differently. Not perfectly, but honestly. She no longer believes in clean endings, only clean beginnings. And sometimes, surviving isn't about being right. It's about choosing, again and again, not to vanish inside someone else's story.